Well, hello. I didn't see you there. Gather round, gather round. Now let me tell you a story about my great-great-grandmother's dear friend, Dorothea Dix. She was one of the most positive and productive women of the 19th century. Dorothea was born on April 4th, 1802.
In Hampton, Maine. I love books and learning new things. I live with my father, who is a preacher, and my mother, who suffers from depression. So I left home at age 12 to live with my grandmother in Boston. I didn't like her wealthy lifestyle and soon moved out to live with my aunt in Worcester, Massachusetts. I was the oldest out of 3 children and loved my brothers dearly. I opened schools in both Boston and Worcester for young and teenage girls.
Dorothea began teaching school at a young age, and while living at her grandmother's home, she taught elementary school out of her house and called it the Dix Mansion. This school allowed poor girls to get an education for free. Dorothea wrote a book called Conversations on Common Things. The book reflected Dorothea's belief that women should be educated to the same level as men. Dorothea's life changed in 1841 when she began teaching Sunday school at East Cambridge Jail.
While I was in the jail, I was horrified to see that many inmates were bound in chains and locked in cages, and children accused of minor thefts were jailed with adult criminals. I was especially shocked at the way mentally ill people were treated. They were locked away in dirty, crowded prison cells.
Dorothea helped in the creation of public institutions dedicated to the treatment of mental illness. She believed that the mentally ill needed treatment and care, not punishment. Dorothea's actions led to the building of many hospitals and safe places for the mentally ill, also the creation of juvenile detention centers.
I thought that the conditions should be improved, so I began traveling around to research the conditions in many prisons and poorhouses. I presented my findings to the Massachusetts legislature in hopes of reform. As a result, funds were set aside for the Worcester State Mental House. I was so happy. I also went to other states and founded hospitals there. I wanted all of the mentally ill in all states to be treated fairly. I met my second cousin Edward Bangs at a party. He helped me set up my school for girls in 1816 and helped me in the fight to establish new mental health institutions.
I was in love with Dorothea and asked her to marry me. She accepted my marriage and proposal and I was so happy.
I couldn't go through with the marriage because of how unhappy my parents' life was together. After my father died, I broke the engagement and dedicated myself to educating young women and helping the mentally ill. I opened an elementary school in 1821 and taught there for a while until I went to Europe.
Dorothea inspired legislatures in 15 U.S. states and in Canada to establish state hospitals for the mentally ill. Her efforts directly affected the building of 32 institutions in the United States.
I went to Europe and discovered enormous differences in the quality of public and private hospitals. I recommended reforms in many countries and met my friend Pope Pius IX.
I really liked Dorothea's ideas and thought that the mentally ill should be treated better. I ordered construction for new public hospitals for the mentally ill.
The treasurer of the Sanitary Commission, George Templeton Strong, gave a sense of how Dorothea was viewed as a reformer.
She is energetic, benevolent, unselfish, and a mild case of monomania. Working on her own hook, she does good, but no one can cooperate with her, for she belongs to the class of comments and can be subdued into relations with no system whatever.
Dorothea was deeply respected by President Millard Fillmore.
I consider Dorothea a devoted and loyal friend, and I support her reforms.
I was a school teacher for a while and decided that I would volunteer my services as a nurse during the Civil War. I was responsible for overseeing the nurses and was named Superintendent of Union Army Nurses.
Dorothea was not formally trained, but her organizational skills impressed Simon Cameron, who was the Secretary of War.
They would call me Dragon Dix, maybe because I didn't always listen to the orders of the military officers. I liked working as a nurse. I cared for my patients and my fellow nurses. I would get medical supplies even when the government wouldn't supply it.
After the war, Dorothea dedicated the rest of her life to improving the lives of the mentally ill, before retiring at the age of 82. Dorothea describes her many years of helping the mental ill as,
"If I'm cold, they are cold. If I'm weary, they are distressed. If I'm alone, they are abandoned.
The Eighth Amendment was ratified, and it ended cruel and unusual punishment, which made it illegal to mistreat people in prisons and asylums. Sadly, Dorothea died in 1887 in Trenton, New Jersey. You may be wondering how my great-great-grandmother knew Dorothea. Well, she was one of the poor girls Dorothea helped to get a free education. My family is forever grateful for her dedication and support. We have all followed in the footsteps of Dorothea and have all become school teachers.